That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable. Ah.
Man, that sunset is gorgeous.
Grill, patio, sunset. Hard to get better than that. Unless you're browsing Carvana's inventory while you soak it all in.
Oh, burger time.
So sit back, get comfortable. Carvana's got thousands of cars under $20,000 just waiting for you.
I could stay here forever.
Carvana, where car buying meets comfort, meets convenience. Download the app or visit Carvana.com today.
Hello, and welcome to the Growth Mindset Podcast, your weekly dose of inspiration and exploration. Join me, your host, Sam Harris, as I discover how mindset can help you do incredible things through my conversations with the world's most interesting people, from tech billionaires to leading scientists, best-selling authors to notorious hackers. The goal is to increase our collective wisdom and attitudes to make us all happier and healthier, wiser and wealthier. Who doesn't want that? Today, we have Rafael de Santos on the podcast. He's a real hustler and a nice guy, and I love what he's doing. He started his first business after he migrated to the UK and was unable to get a good job, so he just hustled himself into success. He's gone from strength to strength, and since then has written his own book about how to succeed as an immigrant, and he's travelled around the world spreading his message of encouragement. And he is currently launching a PR business to help entrepreneurs grow their profile and just succeed at a friendly cost. So I love that. And we discussed lots of cool topics. How to deal with language issues in a new country. How to start a business when you don't know anyone. How to write a book. The top things you need to do to get PR and the big mistakes that people make. Rafael's vision for the future. So lots of things to stay tuned for to learn how to make it anywhere and how to get people to listen to your story. Now, I will just say that the audio quality isn't perfect and it's not what I'd like it to be. However, it is quite good, and I've done a lot of work to make it, well, as good as possible. So hopefully you can listen and you can still understand almost everything that gets said and it doesn't sound too terrible. But if you are a audiophile that loves really, really nice quality audio and bassy tones and stuff, then you might not enjoy the way that this sounds and perhaps you don't want to listen to it. But I think it's good for everyone and it's got so much good lessons in it that I want people to learn from it. So, hence, I am releasing it, and I hope you enjoy.
I'm Rafael. I'm originally Brazilian, being in the UK for 17 years, and then after my job in Brazil, working for Microsoft, I thought I could speak English, moved to London to learn English, and then reality was that my English wasn't good enough, so I ended up becoming a kitchen porter, and I did lots of cleaning and glass collecting, so I became an entrepreneur, not because I want to become an entrepreneur, but because nobody would give me a proper job. So I started, initially, I was renting the rooms in the house where I lived. Then I realized that could become a business. So I launched my first business, which was renting and then subletting rooms in houses. So launched in 2012, sold the business I launched in 2002. Sold the business in 2012, went from one house to 50 houses, and then I bought and sold properties. I had 15 members of staff, had almost 2 million turnover. So it was a good way of not washing dishes anymore. Then lots of things happened. I launched my book in 2014 called Moving Abroad One Step at a Time. Because of the book, I got invited. I went to China to give talks to Chinese students who are moving to the UK. So the book is about telling people what happens when you move and live abroad. Mainly focus on what happens when you live. So all the emotional challenges, not so much no visas and passports, but what happens when you live in a flat share, when you travel and when you're by yourself and when you get sick and you get homesick and all of that. So then I launched a startup as well called Room in the Moon. Into the West, got funding, and after a year and a half, the startup worked. So I had to come back to the UK, launch another business. Then I decided to have a break, did my MBA, which I completed last year. And now I'm in a high-profile club. It's a PR club for entrepreneurs. And we've been doing pretty well. So we have almost 100 clients here, moved to Amsterdam now to launch the business, got into an accelerator. And we are now in the growth stage, which means we will be raising funds to expand. So that's my life in about, 2-3 minutes.
Wow, sounds pretty impressive. It boils down nicely. It sounds like a really fascinating story. So to start at the start, I remember going to Japan and same to Russia. I'd been learning like online, like had to speak and things, and like no one understood a single word I'd been saying. And how had you been learning English when you first?
So I was learning because I went to school. So I went to private school in Brazil, and I also I had private lessons. I thought I could speak English until we have my sister and I moved here together, and we have a very funny story. It sounded as if everyone had a hot potato in their mouth when they were speaking. It was like hop, 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 hop. So now I know the rah rah, as they say, the rah rah, the English. But it was very difficult. I remember going to the supermarket because there were no phones at the time, no smartphones. I had that paper dictionary, that Collins Oxford paper dictionary. So it used to take me like 2 to 3 hours to do shopping because I need to translate things on paper. I had to keep looking. So it was hard. It was very difficult. I say that when you move and you become a migrant, it's like being a child in an adult's body. You know how things work, and as an adult, but as a child, you are unable to speak. So you understand how the world works, but you can't speak the language. So it's a difficult way of living at the beginning.
The way you just explained that, it kind of reminds me of one of the things maybe I like about traveling is sometimes you get treated like a child for quite a long time.
You do.
You don't really know what's going on. You just sort of get in the car when someone tells you and you point at things because if you want to eat that thing, it's quite nice. You have to communicate.
Yeah, when I did that in China, so in 2014, I was there with my husband. I had a photo because I was like, I don't know if they're going to be, if they can always speak English or not. So I had pictures of toilets, I had pictures of the tube, I had pictures of chicken in case I want to eat. And I would show people, and then they would point, and it really worked.
So before we go into a bit of a tangent into language, I had a bunch more questions. I thought maybe I should ask you something a bit more related to your skill set. So yeah, you went into entrepreneurship pretty massively. So you hadn't done entrepreneurship before, but you arrived in a country where you couldn't speak the language and decided to start building like a subletting business. That seems pretty ambitious.
Well, I think the thing with, especially for migrants like myself, a lot of migrants, you don't decide that you're going to build this. You start because you're probably fed up of the situation that you are. I was fed up of not having money. That was reality. I was on tuna sandwich for 6 months. I was like, for years, I didn't eat tuna because I could not stand the smell anymore. But I think the reality was the very first business I started was placing students with host families, and it was way too much work and very little money. So I stopped. And then I was in property already. So a friend of mine had the idea. We then started it together. So we, after I did my house, so we started renting, and then mainly for Brazilians, because we knew there were lots of Brazilians moving to London back then, and then subletting and making a profit. It was only after 3 houses that I decided to do by myself. And then I just looked online how to start a business in the UK and set up on company's house. It was a long learning curve.
Yeah, but I remember the first time I started my business and was like, how the hell do I do this? And then it's actually really easy. You literally just go into company's house and 15 minutes later, you're like, oh, I own a business now. Well, that was a whole thing. I've been like running around for weeks trying to work out. I did it in like 10 minutes. Yeah, it's really funny. Cool. So did you not worry much about getting the legalities wrong with the language?
No, I think the joys of being young and fearless is that I think now, because I have so much knowledge, there are certain things that I always do research first before. When I was 22, when I started, I didn't care. Started and I made a mistake. And then I learned, I was sued. I went to court. I sued people. And the first time is always the scariest. And then after it's like, okay, another one that I have to take to court, or, another landlords that I have a fight because of the deposits and they take me to court. So it's everything. I think at the beginning, it is a little bit scary, but I think when you do it when you're young is easier because you are not so scared of everything, and you have the excuse, I don't know. So it's a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's sort of the same like when you're traveling and you just go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you had to pay for the
Yeah.
train." Wow, who'd have thought about that? Yeah, on the subject of suing people, I've actually got that on my list of things to do coming up, and it's a little bit scary, and I obviously haven't done it before. So yeah, do you have any advice for how to sue someone?
Today, I try to be more of a mediator. So before I go into that, I try to call and send letters. And I think small claims court, you will need all the evidence. It's very time consuming. It takes a lot of energy. But I think if you feel that you're right, even if it's £100, I would do it just because the person should learn a lesson. If it was your money, you should pay.
Cool. Thank you very much. I will try mediating first.
Yes.
Anyway, back to more specific things. So you then wrote a book, which is pretty cool thing to do. How did you set up like a schedule of I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. and write for 2 hours every morning? Did it just start coming out of you randomly whilst you're sitting on the train? How did that process happen?
Yeah, so I was part of a group, and we were doing a business course, and part of the course is actually that we would write our book. The way that we did it was that every day you had to write for 2 hours, no matter what. So it could be an hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening. What I did after work, I did 2 hours every day, and it was 6 days a week. And then I wrote in 3 months.
Wow.
So now I know it's doable. It's not as much work as people think, especially if you're writing about a subject that you know. I have a second book coming up now at the end of April. It's like having a child. Once you had the first child and you've gone through some pitfalls and you know how the sleeping pattern and the eating pattern, it's pretty much the same. So I think because everything that you haven't done yet, you think that is probably wow and difficult and and it's the same. And in a way, I don't know, you become a little bit cynical. It doesn't impress you that much when people okay, we have a book. I was like, congrats. But I know what it's like, So
yeah, definitely.
I'm also an author, so I don't get as impressed. I think once you've done it, you don't get as impressed anymore by people now that have books.
Okay, yeah, it's definitely, I can understand that. It's a good book called Key Person of Influence.
Yes, I have.
Which is sort of about building your social media and like writing a book and your podcast and that kind of stuff. Is that what the business course was trying to achieve that made you write the book? Why were you told to write a book?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It is. I haven't read the book. I've heard of this book. I don't know if you're reading it now, but it's pretty much, yes, it is the principle of KPI.
Okay, cool. Nice. And then did the book help a lot? As in, you said that it took you to China and things. Did you get a lot of people reading it?
Yeah. So when you launch a book, obviously it adds to your credibility because it's not something that everyone has. So, and writing a book in a subject that clearly puts, it makes you as the expert in that field. So it is very important if you want to raise your profile, it is important that you do have a book. So because of the book, and then, as I said, I got invited. I went to China to talk to students who are moving to the UK so they understand what it's like as a foreigner, to be living here and to understand the British culture. I had many other opportunities that you kind of have to really ride the wave once you launch it because there's a lot of buzz around you and around the book. And it kind of dies off after a while. So that's why I'm launching another one now. So, you need to keep going.
Yeah. So, but you were able to get a publisher pretty easily, or did you self-publish?
It's a hybrid between self-publishing and having a publisher. Traditional publishers are the ones that probably pay you upfront or they pay you when they sell the book. Self-publishing, you can do on Amazon with their company called Create. But then the hybrid publishers that you actually contribute to marketing the book, or you contribute to designing the book, and then you have a publisher that do a lot of the work, but obviously you pay them to do the work.
Yeah, that sounds quite useful, because I am writing a book at the moment and was wondering about best ways to do things.
I would look, as I said, so I think today there are these three types. And there is also crowdfunding for books. There are websites that you say what you're going to be writing, and people buy in advance. So they help you by buying books in advance before you actually publish the book.
Nice, thanks. I'll have a look at that stuff as well. Okay, yeah, on to the high profile club. So what's the hardest thing that people have with getting PR that you try and solve?
I think everyone is PRable to an extent. I think there are certain industries that can get visibility much more than others. If you are in HR, in finance, in fashion, or what we call women's interest, these are the top four requests from journalists. They write about this every single day, hundreds of times a day. Now, if you are in spirituality, it's more difficult, you say. So if you are a life coach, it's practically impossible to get your feature. What journalists like, it's what they call tangible business, because I work with entrepreneurs, right? So I can only talk about journalists that deal with entrepreneurs. What they like is the tangibility. So what do you sell, how many sales, how many clients you have, and what is the expertise that you have there. When it comes to coaching, is way more difficult to quantify or to put into tangible work. I know that they help. I have a coach and I think she's fantastic. But when it comes to putting in the media, it's very difficult. And a lot of people that they have good profiles, the biggest issue is that they don't know how to write their profiles. So journalists can read and find interesting or really understand what you actually do. Just to have an example, is most journalists that we work with, they always request what we send to them, a bio with 50 words. So put your life in 50 words and your expertise.
Wow.
So that not everyone has the skill. So that's the problem. And then what happens is, if it's badly written, then you don't get the chance to go through, to be invited for an interview, or, the journalist is not going to send you an email with the questions so you can answer the questions, you can be published.
Okay, and so at the PR Club, you act as a mediator in between the two?
Exactly. So we are evolving a little bit more now. We, instead of just being a PR club, our pitch has changed. So we say that we put people in the spotlight. So it became much more than just being in the media. So a spotlight could be like we had members who became TED speakers, right? And so thanks to the club. Or they got into institutions that got invited to become speakers at the G20 summit. We had people that won awards because we wrote to the awards on their behalf. So there are many ways that you can raise your profile that is not just about being featured in the media. It's being a public speaker, it's contributing to a book, is give a TED talk, winning awards. I think raising your profile has so many pieces to the puzzle. That's why we extend it now, that it's not just about putting our members to give interviews at Forbes or Financial Times or The Sun. It's actually getting them in places that they become more visible.
Okay, so do you think you'd also extend into things like giving people social media lessons?
No, so we don't teach people anything. Okay, so we're not training company. So it's a club that we do the work. And what I mean is, so the journalist contacts us, or an events organizer contacts us and say, we're looking for someone with this profile. So let's say someone with expertise in artificial intelligence. So if we have a member, we then send the profile of 50 words, that bio, to the journalist or to the events organizer. And then we'll say, great, can I speak to your member? Or can I interview? Or can he or she answer these questions? So that's how it works.
Cool. So do you vet clients up front? Do some people call and you go, oh, well, sorry, mate, we're not going to take your money because you're just not going to?
Yes. We also have asked people to leave the club because what they initially said was their profile and they couldn't back it up. It's also our reputation. We have a meeting in advance, that is a quick chat, what we call branding consultation, to really see if your brand fits with the club, because we are working now with fantastic brands. So we need to make sure that we are aligned and we are able to provide profiles that will represent what that brand is asking.
So it's a bit of a two-sided marketplace. You kind of want to have quality contacts and quality leads.
Correct.
Nice. Was it just from your experience of the book that you kind of started to get to know these people in PR and you thought that you could make the connection for people?
No, it started when I was finishing my MBA. We had a weekend of if money wasn't an issue, what would you do? So we had a whole weekend, with coaches. And for me, the key thing was media. I realized how much I love media, how much I like being featured, and I understand what it's like. I've been over 60 publications around the world. So I know, the sense of pride and the sense of achievements that you provide. So I initially started as a traditional PR agency and then quickly moved on to become the club.
Okay, so what is traditional PR?
A traditional PR agency is an agency that was going to charge you between £500 and £5,000 a month to find you opportunities to put in the paper, to find you speaking engagements. What I did is, because I know entrepreneurs won't have the budget to pay that amount of money, so I then decided to turn it around where traditional PR agencies write a press release, send to the journalist, and then chase the journalist to put that press release in the paper. We did the other way around. So we work with journalists and event organizers that they already have their editorial. They know what they're writing. They need people to interview to be placed in those articles that they're writing.
Nice.
So that's the key difference. Yeah. So when we started just over a year ago, we used to receive about 50 emails a month from journalists. So we have a record. In one day, we received 500 requests. So that is a big change, and obviously we still continue to send emails to journalists to say we are here. But now journalists more and more are sending emails to us asking for profiles.
Cool. Congratulations on that. Is that because you're just on the right lists for journalists?
Yeah, I think, we have access of data to certain databases as well. They add us to their distribution list.
Always interested in the future of people's businesses and where things are going. So certainly in terms of Twitter and social media, it is more accessible to get hold of PR if you know what you're doing. What do you think is going to happen in the next 5 years? It's people come across with business models like yours, and I think it's going to be a lot cheaper to get PR.
That's what I want to do. This is what I am building. So in a year, we have been fortunate enough to be selected. We are top 10 best European startup out of 500 that were selected to take part of Startup Bootcamp in Amsterdam, which in a way is great validation for us to, that our technology and our business model is there. What I really want is to be the guy that will disrupt the PR industry and will bring PR to entrepreneurs that before could not afford. So that's the key idea, bringing PR and exposure to the entrepreneur that needs most, which are entrepreneurs with 0 to 20 employees.
Okay. Yeah, that's really nice. Do you think that there's going to be a lot of competition in the area, or is there's going to be a general shift?
Yes, there will always be competition in any field. Twitter is a competitor at the moment because a lot of journalists go on Twitter to try to find profiles. I think just like Airbnb came to the market and became the leader in terms of, holiday flats, even though Booking.com was there for years and, there were so many other websites. I think the key thing is to build something that is very easy to use for both entrepreneurs and journalists and events organizers. As well as being easy, it becomes a vital tool. So that's what we really want, is for journalists, for us to become the number one tool to find right experts for them to interview, to be able to feature.
Yeah. So because you do the work for them, so they don't have to get a bunch of different people on Twitter all trying to get PR for them. They kind of just send the one email and they get the one perfect lead. They don't need to actually sort of spend time qualifying the candidate at all.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. I like it. It makes sense. All right, I already liked it before, but
Thank you.
Okay, so what do you think in terms of looking back at your history? You do seem to have quite a good mindset of growth and taking on challenges that you maybe don't have huge experience in. What kind of mindsets in general do you think you've had that help make you successful?
I think being a migrant from Brazil to the UK, when you are not able to rely on anything, on anyone. It was me and my sister when we arrived in London. We had no access to public funds. I didn't want to go back to Brazil, ask my parents, to help. So there is, I think resilience is number one, if you want to become successful. And success is obviously it's very subjective. People think, I don't think I'm as successful as I still think that I can go. But because obviously some people look at my life, and I've given a TED talk and I wrote a book and I have an MBA. So there's lots of things obviously to celebrate. I don't discard them in any way. But it's funny when you achieve, it's like, okay, what is next? I think for me, it's always like that. For me, it's the go and get and create and then make something and then, turn something into a viable business, which is what happened with High Profile now. So it's, I think it's more the thrill of the challenge. Let me create this. Let me, there are lots of pitfalls and lots of troubles on the way. But when you make it successful, it's such an amazing feeling of achievement. It's funny because once you achieve it, it's great, but then it doesn't last very long. It's like, okay,
you could have realized, okay, if I can do it, anyone can do it. So I must try to do something harder. Yeah, yes, I know what you mean.
Pretty much.
Okay, cool. So a few other things I'd like to kind of round up on then. What would you say were your favorite books that you think really helped you in terms of getting to where you are?
The one that I read is a biography from Felix Dennis. I don't know if you know him.
No.
It's one of the richest men in England and Britain. He was in publication as well. He starts his book saying, I'm writing this book in my private island, drinking probably the most expensive wine in the world. He said, but my reality was very different. When I was in my 20s, I had to jump through the window because the landlord came to collect the rent and I didn't have money to pay the rent. So I had to leave my, through the window. And for me, it's very inspirational to see, how he starts the book and then he explains as a story. Well, I read many books, especially through the MBA. I actually did a few. I can't remember all of them. There's one that I'm reading for the second time now, which is Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I know you must have heard of this book. It's absolutely brilliant. I love anything to do with psychology and mind, NLP and all that. But Feel the Fear, which I'm reading again, I read years ago and I'm reading now the revised version. It's so good, because no matter how many years of experience you have in business, once you start a new business, it's a new industry, and you feel the fear of is this going to work? The book teaches you even like different vocabulary, language for you to change, to feel safe and to feel more confident.
Cool, thanks. And then what was the name of the biography again? Phillips.
It's Felix, Felix, Dennis. The double N.
We're getting super into biographies lately though. It's just it's quite nice because I like reading like fiction at night because it's sort of like interesting to have a story. But then reading a biography, you actually get stories that are sort of super actual, realistic life lessons, but kind of nice to go to bed with rather than just pure business content. So top tip, thank you. And then last for you, what's the kindest thing that anyone has ever done for you?
Oh my God, there are so many kind things that people have done. Well, I have a story. When I first moved to England, I was looking for jobs. I was working in a bar in Soho, and as I worked, I was a glass collector, and then I started talking to one of the customers there, and he at the time was the HR manager of House of Fraser. And I said what I was doing. I was looking for it, and he said, "Oh, if you want, I can help you with your CV." And I thought it was, I had just arrived. I think I was in London for like 4, 5, or 6 months. Anyway, he was such a kind person because, I told him my story. I said, I had a really good job in Brazil, and now I'm doing this because my English is not great. And then he said, "Oh, probably your CV is not the way that normally we reach here as well." So we went to Costa Coffee and we spent about 3 hours. We went through the whole CV, all the words that were wrong that should be, and how. And then we did a mock-up interview. It was just to help me to find a job because I was so unhappy being a glass collector. So it's one of the things that for me, that's why I feel like giving back, especially in this country, because he was English. It was just so kind, for someone who just arrived and someone who wants to improve their life and to get a job. So I think that's the best example. And then a lot of things that I do, I always think about Philip, and how he helped me when I arrived.
Cool. So they say that your 5 people that you spend the most time with, or the people that you kind of try and think about, like when you're asking, like, oh, in this situation, what would like my mate X do? As in, sounds like he kind of made an impression on like how you make your decisions. And
yes, for sure.
That's really effective and cool. Nice. And then what is your earliest sort of vivid memory
of
life? Like when you were like a
yes.
child.
Oh, I see. I think the only thing I remember very, very clearly, I was at school and I had a mate called Nathan, who then became a cartoonist. He's very, very good. And I do remember us painting this duck. The duck had a big hat and it was a female duck. And I remember painting the hat pink and the duck was yellow. And it's very funny. For me, for some reason, that really stayed in my mind. As a child, is one of the things that I can remember.
Yes, it's funny. It's like interesting. Some people have like crazy deep stories from childhood, and some people just have like completely random weird stuff.
I think I have weird. That was like as the earliest as a person, and something that I haven't forgotten.
Do you think you have any like major lessons from your childhood that you think like affected you and sort of changed the way you?
From my childhood, I don't know. I think it's because I grew up in a very small fisherman's town. It was all very free and all very simple. So it's very difficult. I don't know that I can think right now. I would have to think a little bit more.
I think when you sort of retire and stuff, you want to move back to like a slow pace of life in like a fishing village, or is that like the worst thing?
No, that's for sure. No, I think I go today and I visit my parents now. They built a holiday home there again, even though we moved away. It's very quiet. It's a little island actually, and now because of climate change, there is the water around the island warm, so dolphins go there to reproduce. So it's very beautiful. It's very nice, but I don't think I will ever leave Europe. I like Europe too much. So if I have to leave London, it would probably to live somewhere a little bit warmer, like south of France or Spain.
Yeah, that is my thinking too.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Then, is there anything that I haven't asked you about that I really should have asked you?
Maybe about my TED Talk, because a lot of people love.
What was in the TED Talk?
So it's called "What It Takes to Be a Migrant Entrepreneur," and I won an award for it because I think it was one of the most watched TED Talks in the south of England within the first 6 months that was launched online. And it was my story. It was actually an article that I wrote for The Guardian, and it got picked up. And I then got invited to give the talk. It's another thing that really raises your profile as well. So it's one of the flags that I fly now, the migrant entrepreneur flag. I think I always tell migrants, always go ahead and do it, no matter what you sound like, no matter what your accent is like. And if you don't have all the words and you need to kind of speak 3 times as much to be able to explain what English people could explain in half a sentence. So my TED is all about that. It's about moving countries. It's about building a business and being okay with who you are and with the accent that you have and the vocabulary that you have. So that's the key. I think the key message there.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Because certainly, for myself, I kind of think I can start businesses in the UK or I can work remotely anywhere in the world. But on a business in the UK, I don't really sort of think about starting businesses as such in a country that I've moved to. So might be an interesting one for me to check out and actually try.
Yes, take a look. Yes.
Cool. I will. Thank you very much. You've got any websites that people should go to try and find more?
It's very easy. So our website is highprofileclub.com. And then in all social medias, we are High Profile Club. So you can find me there. So on Eventbrite, you can look for High Profile Club event, Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook. So we are High Profile Club.
Cool. Thanks so much for the time. It's really fascinating.
No problem. Thank you.
So that was the interview with Rafael. And now let's break into my top tips. Number 1. Everyone is PRable, but you must have a tangible story. You need to have just a cool story that ideally has some concrete metrics behind it that people can understand, and this way you can really help a journalist latch onto something and tell a cool story for you. And number 2, you need to choose your one thing. To get press, journalists want to have just a succinct 50-word summary to read and just understand what it is that you do. You need to make it really easy for them to just focus on the one cool thing that you're an expert in and that you want to be known for. So if you try and do multiple things at once, you just end up with a bit of a mess that people don't understand what's going on. And this is also a wider lesson for life as well as your PR issues. When you're constantly trying to succeed in many different avenues and your brain just becomes a little bit overwhelmed with all these different things, never does anything really well, and it's not a good recipe for success. Number 3. Everything gets easier. So there are a number of things that Rafael was challenged by, but he just embraced the difficulties and the fears, and they all became much easier over time. When he started his first business, he didn't know what to do, he was scared, but he just grew it and overcame his problems, and then every other business after that, he was always kind of worried that it might not work, but he just goes and does it anyway. And then, he was challenged by living in the UK and being able to speak English, but he just kept on being there, and the pain became less and he was able to deal with it nicely. And he was challenged even by writing a book initially, but now he's talking about actually writing a book's not that difficult, anyone can do it. So it just shows that things can be difficult and painful, and it's important to remember that as long as you don't let your fears and difficulties get in the way, you can just do it. On to books. His first recommendation is the biography of Felix Dennis called How to Get Rich. It is a part manual and a part biography of Felix Dennis's crazy life and how anyone of reasonable intelligence can get rich. The second book was Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers, which is a book that kind of does what it says on the title. It teaches you how to overcome fears and become a boss at life. We also spoke about the book Key Person of Influence, which shows you how to make the most of the world around you and the tools available to become known for your thing and get to the top of any industry. And on that note, we are all summed up, and I hope you have a fantastic week. You've just listened to an episode of the Growth Mindset podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe on your preferred app and give me a good rating, as these go a really long way. If you are unable to give good feedback right now, try sharing the show with a friend who will, or just wait for the show to improve. If you have any ideas for the show or you just want to chat, then please reach out to me on Twitter @SamHarrisTweets or Instagram @SamJamSnaps. Show notes and other links to topics discussed in the episodes are available at the website growthmindsetpodcast.com. Thanks so much for listening. Give yourself a big hug from me. If you're with a friend, give them a hug as well. And I hope you enjoy your next podcast.